Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what a
Hello and welcome to the latest video. So, after watching a few recent interviews with Todd Howard from Bethesda about the current and future state of the company and their ongoing projects, I thought I'd give my own opinions and thoughts about what I consider to be a rapidly escalating shit show on behalf of the now Microsoft owned company. And it comes down to a simple question that will also be the title of this video. Did Skyrim break Bethesda? Now, that might seem like a weird question given that they have released and are making games even after Skyrim's initial release all the way back in 2011. But even so, that actually only counts for two brand new games. Fallout 4, initially released in 2015, and Starfield in 2023. 12 years after Skyrim's original release and 8 years after Fallout 4's. No, Elder Scrolls Online and Fallout 76 do not count, as they have different teams and mostly seem to be managed and maintained by Bethesda's parent company ZeniMax Studios. But there are a few things I think that Skyrim does that have put Bethesda on a path they probably didn't mean to. And for this I will be going into heavy spoilers for the Elder Scrolls series, Skyrim in particular, obviously. Before I get into the meat and potatoes of this video, I just want to say how fucking stupid I think the decision makers are at Bethesda. That original teaser for Elder Scrolls 6 dropped in June 2018, coming up 8 years now, and we have only just been told that they are finally starting production on the game.
Since we're on the topic of Elder Scrolls 6, what can you tell me about
Nothing.
where it's at?
I've never heard of it.
Lessons you've learned from
Pretend we
Starfield.
never announced that. Like, we're at that point with Elder Scrolls 6 where the bulk of the studio is on it, a lot of our partners are on it, and we know, hey, this is what we're doing.
Why? Why even announce your biggest draw that people have wanted since Skyrim's final DLC was released if you weren't working on it and were working on a completely different IP? No answer is satisfactory as far as I'm concerned, and this has only soured my opinion on Bethesda, since I consider Starfield to be a hot mess. If you like or even love that game, good for you, but what we got is not what we all expected, and after using the slogan 20 years in the making over and over again, I think a fair bit of criticism is well deserved. But this video isn't about Starfield. This is about Skyrim and the Elder Scrolls. And it has now led to Todd Howard, now looking like everyone's favourite lesbian auntie these days, complaining that he should never have mentioned it.
Well, yes. Well, you suddenly just realised, have you? It's a good job you had this interview, isn't it?
Don't mention something that isn't even being made. I genuinely cannot think of any other company, no matter the medium, that have ever announced something that isn't actually being made. Maybe I'm having a memory fart, but if you can think of something, put it in the comments below. This just feels like the IRS burger joke in The Simpsons played out over a longer stretch of time.
You should receive your burgers in 6 to 8 weeks.
So back to talking about Skyrim. For anyone who has played these games, don't worry, I'm not going to break down every single thing that can happen in Skyrim. I'll be mostly sticking to the main quest, as well as a few faction questlines here and there where I think it's relevant. Okay, so in Skyrim, you wake up as a prisoner on their way to Helgen to die for crimes you didn't commit. I don't really need to go over this too much, we've all played Skyrim and we've all seen the memes. Anyway, just before the axe comes down and what could have been the shortest game ever made, in swoops a black dragon that wrecks everyone's day but you and the other prisoners. After escaping, regardless of who you choose to side with, we'll get to that later, it'll soon transpire that you are the prophesized Dragonborn, a mortal born with the soul of a dragon that can kill wyverns and absorb their souls, and it is your destiny to stop Alduin, the big bad himself, from destroying the world. Along the way you'll gather Elder Scrolls, do a bit of time travel, and even travel to Nord Heaven and finally put an end to Alduin for good. Or maybe not. Unlike other dragons, you cannot and will not absorb Alduin's soul. There are many fan theories about this, but that isn't the point I'm trying to make in this video. In Skyrim, they make a big deal to explain that Alduin returning has awoken other dragons, and they are back in big numbers after being considered extinct for what has been hundreds of years. It's best to take any lore in-game with a pinch of salt, since Bethesda have a habit of breaking their own lore every game that's released, and this is also part of it. Being a Dragonborn used to be considered special, and something that can be learned or studied, kind of like the way the Force was interpreted in Empire Strikes Back before the prequels came along and said as long as you have itty bitty molecules in you, you're a Jedi. Dumb, and I don't care if you want to defend it, it just ruins the mysticism. The same applies here, and this is where the first problem arises. Skyrim is a huge sandbox RPG with many skills that you can level up, and many of these have pretty good perks to be unlocked. Again, we know the memes of the stealth archer, but adding the Dragonborn shouts also turns you into short of a god. Now, this is nothing new. Even in Oblivion and Fallout 3, you could really make your character overpowered, and this is not even singular to Bethesda. A lot of RPGs let you become a god by the end of the game. It's one of the main appeals of this type of genre besides its escapism. I'd actually argue that you can make your character even more OP in Fallout 4 than Skyrim. You can swim underwater without needing oxygen, remove radiation from contaminated food and water, and even have the ability to pistol whip enemies without shedding a single piece of ammo. And even though it wasn't as OP as Skyrim and Fallout 4, even Starfield had skills that could make you feel pretty powerful. But going back to Skyrim, this is where it all started. By the end of the game, and even without doing much actually, if you know the right exploits, you can make your Dragonborn so overpowered with their skills alone. I'm going off the vanilla release for this point, none of the mods that overhauls the skill tree, some of which are actually really great. There are two in particular that are absolutely broken and Bethesda have never patched, and that's the alchemy and enchanting trees. I'm not going to go into the nitty gritty here, but suffice to say, if you know what you're doing and you max out these skill trees, it's possible to give your Dragonborn weapons and armor so OP you can literally crash the game. Believe me, I've done it. Now, that power trip was part of the marketing of Skyrim. The original trailer, voiced by the late great Max von Sydow, talks about the return of dragons and how that's a very bad thing, but there is one they fear, and it's you. And even though it's old hat, man, that main theme still gives me chills. And because of how well Skyrim was received, as well as its millions and millions of remasters, I think Bethesda have accidentally gone down a path they didn't mean to. Of course, this is all speculation on my part, and obviously in the 15 years since the original release, a lot of people will have come and gone at the studio, so people who once made creative decisions and suggested ideas are no longer at the company. The big one is Michael Kirkbride, who left during Oblivion's development. I'm not going to go into too much regarding him, but a lot of what makes the Elder Scrolls feel more unique for a fantasy setting is down to him. Now, I should say, if you're still watching this far into the video, I love Skyrim. I truly do. This is my all-time favourite comfy game, like a comfort blanket. But, and I don't know if any of you can relate to this, I have played this game so many times and for so many hours, I don't actually know if I can put in time for a new save anymore. Not that that's a bad thing. I have mined this game for all it's worth, and then mined it some more. Unlike other RPGs with multiple choices and outcomes, like Mass Effect for instance, there isn't much in the way of choices in Skyrim. I suppose the same could be said for other Bethesda games, except at certain pivotal times. In Fallout 4 you can choose to side with the Institute, no idea why you'd pick them, the Railroad, who are also very dumb, or the Brotherhood of Steel, who are even dumber, at the climax of the main quest. But that isn't where Bethesda's strength lies. Bethesda's greatest strength has always been environmental storytelling and great crafted lands and worlds that you want to explore, but I'm getting off my point. The second problem is tied to the first. I think that Bethesda will make your character a prophesized something or other, and I really hope they don't. In Oblivion, you weren't the real hero of the game. Martin Septim was. He's the one who ends the main threat when Mehrunes Dagon bashes through the Imperial City. Sure, you'll be called the hero of Kvatch and all that, but you're not the one who vanquishes the great evil. You could still be powerful in Oblivion, but it wasn't as OP as Skyrim, and I think due to Skyrim's enormous success through millions of remasters, Bethesda will continue this trend of making your character a prophesized god of something. This also kind of carried over into Starfield. There was the whole Starborn tree line and the stupid way you had to activate them, but it cannot be just coincidence that two of Bethesda's games have a something born title for your character. Anyway, if I'm wrong about this prophesized something or other, feel free to come back in 2050 when the game finally comes out to prove me wrong. The third problem that Skyrim brings is the Civil War quest line, the Empire versus the Stormcloaks. Who you side with is up to personal preference, and I'm not here to judge either way. But the problem is that every single Elder Scrolls game, since Morrowind at least, has been set in a different land on Tamriel. Morrowind is the titular land of the Dark Elves. In Oblivion, you roam the vast land of Cyrodiil, the home of the Imperials and the Septim Empire, and Skyrim is the home of the Nords. So what does that have to do with the Civil War, you might be asking? The problem is the way Bethesda handled the outcomes of quests and questlines in subsequent games. At least in relation to the Elder Scrolls games at least. So we're talking about canon here, and the way they approach canon is that the main quest and the faction questlines are always canon, no matter what. but it's always worded vaguely so that your particular headcanon for your character isn't affected. It's nice for them to do this, but this is where the vagueness becomes a problem. No matter how vaguely they do this, there has to be a definitive outcome for the Civil War. But then again, maybe not, because if you don't progress the Civil War to a point, you can get the quest Season Unending during the main quest line, where both sides broker a truce by the Greybeards in the only useful thing they ever really do. And this turns the Civil War into something of a Cold War until you reignite it yourself. But is that really a satisfying conclusion? I don't think so. However, the Civil War only really impacts Skyrim, and even then only if you side with the Stormcloaks. I'm not saying that Skyrim becoming an independent state wouldn't be interesting, because it absolutely would, but I doubt this is a route that Bethesda will take, if only because that gets more military and political and takes the sand out of the sandbox. Maybe they could explore it in a spin-off game, but that also seems unlikely that they would have the outcome of a big part of Skyrim be concluded in a spin-off title. And that would also mean making another game. And the Civil War ties into another questline, at least partially, which is my next problem, and that's the Dark Brotherhood. I know there's the choice to destroy the Brotherhood, which is a fun little thing to do, but I doubt Bethesda will make that canon. What they will make canon is that at the end of the questline, you kill the Emperor, 1 Titus Mede II. A pretty cool questline for the most part. Also, as an aside, if somehow, somewhere, anyone at Bethesda is watching this video, do not make the Brotherhood be slaughtered again in the next game. You did it in Oblivion, and you did it again in Skyrim. Do something different with them this time, yeah? Anyway, the Emperor being killed will be made canon of this, I am certain, and this will carry over into the next game. And there's the problem. Surely the death of the Emperor will have an impact on the Civil War. Now, the death of the Emperor is definitely something that would impact every region in Tamriel, since the Empire is already on the brink of collapse. Again, and there's also hints of another war with the Thalmor. But the Civil War, and even the main quest of Skyrim, has no real impact on the wider world of the Elder Scrolls, besides dragons maybe popping up. And this leads to the crux of my point. I think the only logical place for the next Elder Scrolls game to take place would be Skyrim again. I mean, I wouldn't want them to, but it just seems to me that if they don't, they leave a lot of dangling plot threads that never get resolved, because it's hard to see how you could go to a new region and show the fallout, no pun intended, of the things that happen in Skyrim, at least in relation to the questlines I've mentioned already. There could be an even bigger dragon epidemic. The Civil War could be ramped up with both sides trying to catch and tame dragons, and the Emperor being dead would make the Empire even more desperate. But even this would only make sense if they let you choose the state of the world at the beginning, similar to Dragon Age Inquisition. But again, this is not something Bethesda have ever done before, and I don't think they ever would. There's also another problem I think that Bethesda is facing, and that's Bethesda itself. Ever since Starfield was released, it has felt like a studio that is scrambling to find its footing. I think part of this is that the studio has become bigger than ever before, and like I said before, there are also plenty of former developers who once worked on their previous titles that are no longer there. Some of these developers have also gone on record about the mismanagement taking place at Bethesda. So, going back to my original question, did Skyrim break Bethesda? In my opinion, yes. I know that sounds like a negative, and it is, but I really do think the major problem plaguing the next Elder Scrolls game is that they have written themselves into a corner unless they definitely give an outcome to the events I've mentioned. Kinda similar to BioWare with the next Mass Effect game. I also think that Bethesda doesn't know what to do with the Elder Scrolls IP anymore. A lot of RPGs have come out since the original release of Skyrim, some of them truly great and well loved by the gaming community, that I also think they are going to have to work really hard to make ES6 stand out. So what do you think? Do you think Skyrim broke Bethesda, or do you think it was something else? Or do you think I'm wrong and Bethesda are fine? And where do you think the next Elder Scrolls game will take place? And do you think they'll give an official end for the Civil War? Let me know in the comments below. One final note I want to leave this video on is a little tribute to a YouTuber who sadly passed away recently. If you are a fan of Elder Scrolls and Fallout content on YouTube, you should have come across Camelworks, who had some really interesting takes and deep dives in those franchises, and his videos were always interesting and entertaining. One of his videos also actually inspired me to do my very first Skyrim video on this channel for its 10th year anniversary. Check that out if you want to, plus you get to see my beautiful face. But I really enjoyed watching Camel's videos, and he even did videos breaking down the other regions in Tamriel that could make for a potential Elder Scrolls 6. Whenever I watch those videos, there will always be a bittersweet taste to them now. From those that did know him, spoke very highly of him and how supportive he was of other creators, not just people who focus on Bethesda games. We never met, but I was saddened to hear of his passing, and I would like to have known his take on the current madness over at Bethesda. Rest in peace, Camel. I've been Craig, this is Amalgamingle, and thank you for watching.